welcome to the Lighten Up podcast with Lauren Polly, your invitation for living on the lighter side of life. I'm Lauren Polly, and I'm delighted you've chosen to join me today for episode 149, Close Enough When You Almost Get What You're Asking For. This topic kind of cracks me up. It's something that I think most of us deal with time and time again as we're moving and grooving in our lives and creating personal lives that work for us and professional lives that work for us, and really are looking at developing and going further, going bigger and expanding into more. We either subconsciously or consciously, if you've been doing this self-discovery conscious work for a while, are continually asking yourself, asking the universe, asking the people in your lives, asking whatever that is that's actually generating your future to actually have elements come into it that suit you and will actually help you along your life path, your life journey, and your personal growth. A lot of us, yes, we get stuck in kind of mundane humdrum, or this is just the way things are for a little while. But inevitably, we come up to a crossroads where we start to ask for more. We start to put feelers out into developing a new relationship, or developing a new business, or developing a creative project, or growing in our career. Whatever it is, those bursts of creation start to call, where we just start going, you know what, there may be something more than what I currently have. What we do in creating that is we're actually making an ask. We are asking for something different. And that's kind of stage number one in creation. And again, this goes personal. This also goes professional. Anywhere in your area that you're looking for something more, something different, or just a change, you are making an ask for something different. If you're not actually asking, if you're not wondering about that, if you're not exploring it, nothing really is going to change for you. Nothing will grow to the degree that's possible for you. So the ask is a huge thing, but what happens is we start asking for things. Sometimes they come in wildly different packages than what we think we're asking for. And we go, wow, that kind of took me by surprise. I wasn't expecting that person or that business or that possibility or that job. But there's enough of a lightness and an expansion, and again, the vibration and the kind of congruency of that more you've been asking for to say yes to it. That's kind of an easier thing for me. That was what I see with a lot of the people that I work with. When it comes in a different package unexpectedly, but it has enough of the energy there, it's enough and it's easy enough to say yes to it and move forward. What I see as a more tricky circumstance is when you've been asking for things, you've been looking for that change and exploring what that could be for you, sometimes getting super specific on what you're really looking to create. And when something comes, a door opens, a person shows up, a possibility comes your way, and it's just close enough to what you've been asking for. Not all the way, but it's close enough, how we sometimes get tripped up in that process. That little point of like, wow, I was asking for this new job. I was asking for this amount of money. I was asking for this thing here. All of that is included, but something here isn't quite what I desire it to be. Something isn't exactly light and expansive here. And it's fascinating because sometimes just tapping into the energy of it, or taking that possibility into your space, indulging it for a couple of seconds. Okay, if I was to choose this job, choose this relationship, choose to start that project that's opening its arms to me right now, indulging it in your space, that way you start to feel into it and sense into it, and something just doesn't sit right in your world. There's not a lightness, there's not an expansion, or there's just a difference that you weren't anticipating with what you were asking for. Sometimes it gets so sticky in those circumstances because your ask looks like from the outside that it's getting answered. And yet, when you go and you actually indulge it and start looking at that possibility and going forward in the future with it, it's not exactly a match for you. You know, we've all had these circumstances where we found somebody and went, oh, wow, this would be a great relationship, either a romantic one or a friendship or a business relationship. It's kind of checked off all the little boxes that you had given yourself of what you were looking for. And then you get going in it and you're like, wow, I don't know what it is because everything on the surface matches, but deep down underneath it, it just doesn't work. It's just not expansive. There's just this kind of weight to it. We do the same thing in professional areas too. Sometimes we'll take that new job or start that new business that on the surface checks all those little boxes we've been asking for. But again, once you get going, there's something not quite right about it. And I don't mean right as a correct way. I mean that rightness that when something actually lands and is playing with you in a way that generates and fills you up and has a possibility for future, that somehow just isn't there. So again, this is a tricky place because here you are, you've been making progress, you've been asking for things, you've been looking at changing, something shows up that matches exactly what you've been asking for, and yet it doesn't at the same time. What do you do in that circumstance? Well, there's some people who kind of flip out a little bit and get very angry at the thing that showed up that looked like it was supposed to, but doesn't feel or sense like it's supposed to. There are a lot of people who stick in relationships that are less than generative, less than kind, and less than creative because they have enough of those yes components. They think they should be able to figure it out. They should be able to make it work. Perhaps something is wrong with them and what they're engaging with, that they just need to kind of fuss and fiddle with it enough to make it work. How has that actually worked out for you when you've done that before? When something looked like it was a yes and you started to play with it and you knew deep down it was a no for you, but because again there were so many yes components to it, so many matches of what you've been asking for, you thought it was your job to try to take that square peg and mold it and change it and fix it enough to be able to fit into the round hole that you were trying to put it into. Again, not super generative and another sticking spot that we get stuck in a lot. And then some people just go the opposite end where they just get so frustrated that, oh God, it looks like I wanted it to. It doesn't feel or sense like there's an opening here. So I guess there was something wrong with what I was asking for, and they give up. Regardless of where you've gone with this in the past, either professionally or personally, what if there was a different possibility? If you actually looked at this circumstance where you've been asking for something, it shows up, it is yes and checking off your boxes in a lot of different areas, but you're finding things to it that aren't quite congruent, that don't feel super yummy. If instead you didn't give up, you didn't get frustrated, or you didn't go into fix-it mode and overdrive with that, you just took the moment to stop and ask questions, started to clarify your ask. A lot of times what occurs is when we're looking at changing something and we're asking for something different, that thing, if you explore enough and put yourself out there, inevitably shows itself to you. You get what you're asking for. A lot of people don't take the second phase of that process, though. That second phase is actually getting more clear on what your original ask was and then starting to refine it. So sometimes when you're asking for things that you think you desire, the business you think you want to run, the partnerships you would like to have, the relationships in your lives, sometimes you have an idea of what may work for you. And then once you get going in it, you actually are presented with it and go, you know what, that thing actually doesn't work. Or there's more specifics I need to be asking for. Because this is close, but it's not all of it. And instead of actually settling for close enough, almost what I wanted, I guess that's enough of a yes, I'll move ahead. If you actually allowed yourself to go into phase 2 and to clarify what it is you actually desire and what it is you would really like to be truly asking for, what could you create from that space? I did this with my speech therapy jobs about a year ago. I was on the hunt for a gig, and I had so many points of view about what it should look like and shouldn't look like based all on my past experience. It was kind of frustrated because I was getting offers left and right. I put the ask out there. I started to put my feelers out. I think I got offered like 6 different jobs in the span of 2 months, and all of them kind of checked positive parts off on my little wish list. But when I started to feel into them and sense into them, parts of it didn't actually work for what I wanted to create. I was actually willing at that point to, number one, get clearer with myself on what would work for me, where I would like to go in my future, and I upped my ask at that point. And then the second part of that, I was actually willing to say no. I was willing to look at this job that looked delicious and wonderful on the surface and would bring me immediate money and all sorts of stuff. And instead of actually going, well, you're close enough, I guess I'll just go, I was willing to go, it's close enough, but it's not a yes yet. I was willing to say no to that, and I was also willing to open up my ask again. Universe, what else you got? I wonder what else is out there with this new information. And so many of us don't actually take that, again, second phase of this, where we go, cool, I made an ask, something appeared, I was able to explore and play with it a little bit, and you know what came from it? More awareness. I am now more clear with me on what I would like. And so it's not settling for the first thing that shows up. It's you getting more clear of, wow, I've been asking for that. It showed up. Now I need to add in more specifics to that ask. Or perhaps I need to change it altogether. I thought this is what I would want, but now that it's here, it actually won't serve what I'm looking at creating in the future. There is a way to start playing with this kind of paradigm of asking for something, receiving it, and before you actually go, well, it's close enough, I need to move forward with it. Actually allowing yourself to take a beat, take a breath, and truly allow the awareness of receiving what you've been asking for to open up more. Wherever you've been stuck in this process, wherever you've been settling a little bit, or you've been choosing things based on the surface check marks. I want a man who's this, this, and this. Check, check, check. You're the one that's going to come. Or going into a business opportunity and saying, okay, cool. This is what I want my business to look like. This, and this. And you find something and you check, 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 and you're done. What if that actually wasn't the case at all? What if you allowed yourself to continue the exploration? Make your ask, receive everything that's coming, again, exploring what would work for you, and practice that exercise I talked about. Once a possibility opens, a person shows up, a connection starts to build, a business starts to bubble, indulge it in your own space. Sense into it. Cool, if I said yes to this, what would my future be like? What would my day-to-day be like? What would it create now in my living? Awesome. And what would it create in my future? Start to sense into it a little bit. You will, whether you are tuned into the energetics of that, or whether you're tuned in more on a kind of a surface level at this point, if you haven't really been working with these consciousness-based tools before, you're still going to get it. There's a gut sense. There's an intuition. There is a yes moment, and then there's a yes with a little bit of an anchor attached. That's kind of what we're talking about here, the yes with the anchor attached. So regardless of where you're functioning right now or how many tools you've played with thus far, if you just took a beat and looked at what would be created from your choice, and if it wasn't a match, would you be willing to say no? And would you be willing to go into phase 2 of this, clarify your ask, perhaps change it, perhaps make it greater than it was before to actually see what you were capable of bringing into your life? We're all capable of actually living a bigger, better life and creating that for ourselves. Living your best life. It's everywhere in the media. Unfortunately, there is a very glossy term with that, but not a lot of tools and how to get there. That's what I'm hoping to gift to you with not just this episode, but the other episodes of the Lighten Up podcast. There are step-by-step ways to start playing with this. This is one. And this is one that I see a lot of people getting stuck in and making themselves wrong for. This is one I work with my coaching clients on all the time. Cool, you've asked, you've made changes, this is what's showing up. Is it a yes? Is it a no? Or is it a ground just to clarify for yourself what you've been asking for, getting in greater alignment with it, and starting to make more targeted, conscious choices from there? That is a growing edge, but at the same time, it is a money maker for your life and your living if you're able to hone it. Please listen to this episode again, pull out the information, pass it along to your friends and family if you see them getting a little stuck in this, or if they're just looking for a boost in increasing the ask of their life. You know, if all of us were asking for greater and willing to actually be congruent with that, what would our world be like? Everybody's stepping up onto the bigger stage and leading their lives in a more positive, uplifting, and light direction. It would have a ripple effect in my awareness that is beyond imaginable. I'm happy to have you along on the journey. As always, you can reach me at lauren@laurenpolly.com. If you'd like to sit down with me for a one-to-one to see how this would apply to you, visit my website at laurenpolly.com and click on a discovery session. We can sit down and actually piece this apart for you. Have an amazing, amazing week. And as always, I will chat with you next Tuesday.